taser, what we're getting and stuff like that. Chief's got some words to say, obviously some Q&A with him or myself. I know you guys probably want to go hands-on with some devices, see how they work, so we do have some devices ready to go hands-on. But what I'm going to do is after we get done with the basics and everything, we can split up. Officer Jason Jackson has worn this camera before, so he's very familiar with it, as am I. We can go outside, you guys can take whatever you want. Also, we have a virtual reality experience, which is, I highly recommend that you try. It's the law enforcement based, and what that's going to do is it's going to show you that while these cameras are the latest and greatest thing, it still does not capture every single thing that happens in real life scenario. So again, we'll go through this real quick, or as long as you guys have questions that we can answer, and then we'll move on to the equipment that we get with their contract and also the virtual reality. So again, today we're starting to implement the TASER Axon 2 body camera. I am currently wearing it. This is a new step for us as far as we're equipping all our uniformed patrol officers and sergeants are going to have this camera system. So we do have administrative personnel such as detectives or officers that work for PAL or our Police Athletic League that are not going to have one. They may respond to a call. So, but as far as that, we're one of the few agencies in the state of Florida that is actually going to go ahead and equip all uniformed officers and first-line supervisor sergeants, because they respond to a lot of calls, with these TASER cameras. Along with the TASER cameras comes the actual TASER itself. We're actually one of the first agencies in the state of Florida to go with yellow TASERs. The reason we're doing that is for recognition on officers' part and the community's part. Countless times that I'm out on the road, I get asked, why do I carry 2 guns? A lot of times, a community member will see something real quick and say, I saw the officer pointing a gun at them. Well, now what we're going with yellow is no mistaking that yellow is obviously the TASER, and it's not a firearm. So again, just an extra precautionary step that we're taking here at the police department so that the officers know, so an officer's responding to me, and I have somebody at TASER point, they know this is a TASER scenario, this isn't a lethal scenario. And then again, so the members of the community can see that the officers are going to, not only are we saying TASER, 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 but now you can see that you have a TASER. So there's some really interesting features that come together with the TASER and the body camera as far as how they communicate with one another, as far as just by turning on one TASER, if officers that are wearing body camera are in a vicinity Bluetooth range, they'll activate all the cameras as well. So we can talk about all that a little later, but what we're doing today is to basically kick off our initiative. We do have TASER personnel here on site. They're going to train our officers throughout the entire week. We're getting some trainers, and then we're going to train all the officers going to be wearing them. So by Thursday, the majority, by Friday, all of us will have them on live and ready to go. So I'll turn it over to Chief Diggs. He's got some words, I get some questions for him, and then we'll go into some other stuff. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Welcome to the Fort Myers Police Department this morning. This is a good morning for the police department. I think it's a good morning for the city of Fort Myers. As you know, since I've taken command of the Fort Myers Police Department, one of the big pushes and initiatives is to increase and improve our use for technology as we do our day-to-day policing in this community. And I'm proud to announce that today we're going to start deploying approximately 142 body cameras on our uniformed patrol officers. Like the lieutenant says, we'll be one of the very few, if not one of the first, police departments who entirely outfits their officers, their uniform officers, with the use of body cameras. Every patrol officer assigned to patrol will eventually be assigned a body camera. Why is this so important? Several reasons. Number one, the video recorded by body cameras protect against any false accusations, misconduct, and or abuse against officers. Number two, it can assist in preventing and de-escalating confrontational situations between our officers and the civilians that we're sworn to protect and serve. Valuable evidence may be obtained accurately through witness statements and victim statements with the use of these body cameras. But let me tell you some of the more important parts as far as me as chief of police. Number one, use of these body cameras increases and enhances transparency and accountability of the police officers to the citizens that we serve in this community. In addition, use of these body cameras gives our officers the additional tools they need to do their job. And finally, as a police chief, what's the most important value of these body cameras is the fact of officer safety. Utilizing these body cameras is what enhance the safety of our officers as they conduct their duties out there day to day on the streets of the city of Fort Myers. So I'm very proud of the fact that we have deployed these body cameras. I want to thank the mayor. I want to thank my boss who just came in, city manager. And I want to thank city council for quickly, and I do mean quickly, allocating the funds for us to purchase these body cameras. I think it demonstrates the commitment on their part to make sure our officers are properly equipped to do their jobs out there. Before I take questions, boss, I'd like to say a few things.
Thank you. Good morning. As Chief said, we are very proud that the city, the mayor and city council give us the budget to do this. And I don't know if Chief mentioned that or not, we are going to be the first city in this area that all of our officers are going to be equipped with the cameras. But having said that, I want to thank you all for being here. I appreciate it.
Questions, anybody?
Will you be able to watch this live back here? Like if an officer is in danger and their body camera's on, is somebody here, will they be able to see that and, you know, maybe be able to send more people out there?
You want to answer that question?
No, we won't, that doesn't happen.
Not yet.
There is not yet, probably. Each camera is individual with the viewer that we get with each camera, and it's synced to that, so that there's no corruption in the file at all. So while that is a good idea, it's not gonna happen that way for now.
We'll try to.
That's
embed
right.
that.
However, as a supervisor, if I'm gonna go up to a scene and somebody says to me, hey, you know, this officer said this, or that to me, I can immediately view it live. I'm sorry, not live, just recorded. We'll take Officer Jackson, he works with me. I'll pull him aside, I'll look at it right here, and I don't have to go anywhere, I don't have to come to the police department. I can just stay right there on the roadside, look at the video, and if I have a situation where I need to address with the officer, we can take care of that later, or I can show the person themselves, the client themselves, say, hey, look, this is what transpired, this is exactly how it went. That answers your question.
Is that viewer worn also by the officer?
No, the viewer is
It's
not
like
worn.
it's a cell phone, basically?
It basically is that, it's just for viewing capacities only. Once we download the video and it goes onto a server, it's gone from here.
Is there
So
a
it's
range?
basically, I will find out for you.
Okay.
I'll get with the TASER representative and find out what the range of that is. I would probably say it's within Bluetooth or Wi-Fi range, but just to be safe, just like the TASER itself. So it's only used for purposes of viewing. It can be used for tactical reasons as well. We can use this as well. So great asset to have, and that comes with our contract, our 5-year contract with the actual TASER and then the camera, and then we'll in 30 months we'll replace the cameras.
One of the things that you just mentioned on, and I don't know if you realize or not, is the fact that after 30 months, all these brand new tasers that our officers are getting today, we're gonna switch them all out and get 142 brand new tasers. All our, excuse me, I said tasers. I'm correct on that, but I'm talking about the body cameras. After so many months, we get to switch out all our body cameras and get brand new body cameras. In addition, all the tasers that we're gonna get issued to us when they get here, after 30 months, we're gonna switch out all those. That's part of the contract. So we talk about technology, and I'm not a technology geek, but you know that technology changes all the time. So basically, for the next 5 years, our police department is going to get the latest and greatest when it comes to body cameras and it comes to tasers. We're going to switch all of them out, and that's part of the contract. Every 30 months, for 5 years, we're going to get the greatest and the latest in this technology. And that's why this type of technology from this company was so important for us. And so that's very, very important for me.
We have a lot of questions from our viewers about policy. Josh asked, does the officer control when it's turned on and off? Thomas asked, what happens to an officer that doesn't put their body camera on? Does the officer have access to delete video?
Officer does not have access to delete the video. He can't tamper with it. Does the officers have control of when they turn the body camera on and off? That depends upon the circumstances. Policy will dictate when those cameras will be turned on mandatorily. And if they do not turn those cameras on when they should turn those cameras on, then they'll be addressed disciplinary-wise.
Has the policy already been made?
We have policy on that already.
Okay, so what does that entail?
Well, the policy is the cameras will be turned on when there's any type of police interaction. If they're not turned on when police interaction, we find out about it, then disciplinary action will be taken upon the officer. The only exception to that is that there may be times, because of circumstances, that the officers don't get a chance to turn on those cameras. But also another feature that the lieutenant mentioned, the fact that certain circumstances will automatically turn those cameras on, okay?
And will it be kind of part of their uniform? Do they have to take it with them every day?
If they're on uniform, repeat again, if they're wearing the uniform, on uniform patrol, the cameras would be part of their uniform.
How long do you guys, or I don't know if this works as a search, but how long do you store the video files that you guys record on these cameras? How long does it stay with the department?
Well, that depends upon circumstances if they use for evidence or not. We have a 90 day limit,
Yes.
but public records. But if we need it for evidence and things like that, it will be a lot longer than that.
Because you're storing, it'll be every day, people, you know, you guys have them on, so it's a lot of video.
Yes, it is.
Is that something you have now here at the station to
Yes.
store?
Yes.
That's a lot of.
Yes, yes. And that's another reason why we went this company, because they have the ability to store the massive amount of data that's gonna be necessary for us to be able to use these things on a day in, day out basis.
Lieutenant, you're wearing the camera. Is it cumbersome? Is it annoying? Is it
This is
interfere?
it.
Yes.
The older system that we had, remember, we've already had some of these, with just special units and stuff like that, so, with the wire and stuff like that, this new one is just what I'm wearing here. It's got a magnet on here, which is fairly tight. And like the chief said, it's just, we just make it part of our uniform. It's no different than putting on our duty belt and putting on our radios and our guns and checking everything. We have to answer your question about policy, you're welcome to do a public records request for our policy as well, but we check it every day, just like we do our tasers and stuff like that. So our policy is, as the chief said, it's in place and it's ready to go. So yeah, I think I answered your question pretty good. So, you know, and chief, just we talked about, you know, the storage, and that's a big money thing. That's where the money comes into, you know. But like the chief and I has talked about, and you've heard him say it before, again, is investment. This is a big investment for the community. So we have to see it that way for our police department and for our community to just feel safer with us. So we see it as a great investment, more than anything else.
So you're basically tripling the amount of cameras, correct, Chief? Because there were 40 before?
Yeah, pretty much. 40, we went from 40 something to 142.
Right, okay.
So
What-
stored for at least 90 days, and then longer if necessary?
Yeah, it all depends also on evidentiary value. Like some of the stuff that we're gonna do with you guys today, you know, just to show you how it works and stuff, that still gets recorded.
Mhm.
Everything gets recorded. But obviously the way we file it, when we file it, it depends on the storage, where it goes and for how long. Because obviously that's not gonna be evidence, it's just showing you some stuff. If it needs to be stored for longer, then there's different categories in how we label the video.
Because my question is, if we were to request it, if it's gone after 90 days, it won't be there, whether it's us or anyone in the public, correct?
That's my understanding, but I'm not gonna answer, no, you can't get it. I'm not a professional
Because
in that.
it kind of depends on what you were recording, because you might keep it longer, or you might get rid of it earlier.
Yeah, correct. Again, there's no sense in me keeping a demo that I did today or something like that, but if there's anything that, an encounter on the street that the officer sees or whatever the case, then we'll definitely keep it longer.
I had a question for the city manager, if he's willing, about the investment. We're always talking about this is a big investment for the police department, obviously, it's not a cheap thing to purchase. How did you guys come to the decision that this was something that you guys wanted to give the police department?
This is something that city wanted to get involved, but we wanted to know which one and which technology. And this technology came along and Chief was familiar with it, so we went with it. And it was almost $1 million, wasn't it? Yeah, it was close to $1
Right,
million.
and going to make a decision of spending more than $1 million on something, what goes into the thought process of that?
We care about the community. We wanted to make sure our community is equipped with the highest technologies available, and that's what we are going with. And this is just startup.
Was there something about this technology that stood out among other, you know, body camera technology that's out there? I guess, why did you choose this as opposed to other systems?
I had a lot of experience with the people out in Scottsdale, Arizona. It was the same body camera people that utilized body cameras back when I was in Ohio. And we did extensive studies on the various body cameras, so I was basically sold on them. So if you want to say I'm a taser guy, I'm more of a taser guy. And the fact that I know the quality of the equipment and everything else because I've experience with it. But once again, I talked to you about the fact that, you know, in 30 months, we get a chance to get all this stuff out and get all this brand new stuff in like that. That was a big key for me. Okay, so for the next, you know, several years, we're going to get the latest and greatest on this type of technology, and that was a big factor for me to push forward for this particular company.
Chief Diggs, quick question. When you mentioned talking about transparency and your emphasis on having a very transparent department here, did you feel that that wasn't necessarily the case going into the position beforehand? Did you feel like there needed to be more from this department?
Well, I'm not going to get into all.
Sorry.
You know, I'm not even married. You guys. Yeah, I'm not going to get into all that. You know, there's a way that we're going to do policing in this community as long as I'm the chief of police. And I repeated this and I repeated this numerous times. And one of the things that major thrust we have is that of building proper type of relationships with the community. And part of that process is trust and accountability. And in order to do that, for me and this police department, gain the trust of the community so they'll start supporting us and working with us, things like this, utilizing this type of technology is very, very important.
How accessible will they be to the public?
Pardon me?
How accessible will the video be to the public? Will there be a policy on how to request that?
Well, just like any other type of public records request now. Okay?
So we see that technology has been a huge part of, you know, what you've been trying to implement since you came to the department. Is this part of that, or was there an incident that triggered, you know, you guys wanting to buy this? Was there like a last straw? I know we saw some recent incidents where there were some dangerous stops for police officers in Estero. I know that wasn't necessarily this department, but was there an incident that prompted you to do this, or was this part of your plan?
This has always been part of my plan, and this is just the tip of the iceberg. Okay? We're going to be doing more as far as technology. We're going to be bringing more technology here. We're being introduced. This is my beliefs in the intelligence-driven type of policing that I believe in. So we'll be moving forward more and more and more, and you're going to start seeing us utilize technology more, because we got to give our officers the various tools they need to do their job.
And what's your officer's response to getting this new technology?
We'll find out.
Quick
We'll
question,
find out.
Chief Diggs. You know, you mentioned that you were a big proponent of getting the show cops here. How does this play a factor in, you know, communicating with that group?
I don't, you know, there's, one doesn't affect the other, okay? You know, this has been on the drawing board for some time. We pushed to have it through the work of the mayor, city council, and city manager. They quickly allocated this type of funding, and so that's why we're here today. Okay, the decision for COP was very simple for me. I've had experience with it. I think it's great for police community relations. I think it's necessary to show the public out there the good job that our officers do out there in our community.
Are these immediately deployable, or
Gotta do some training.
Well, no, what I mean is like the last time, sir, before, they were almost gonna be deployed, then there was a little negotiation with the police union. Is that not gonna be applicable?
Let's make this very clear. As soon as these officers are trained, they're going out with these body cameras, okay?
You mentioned, one last thing, you mentioned other technologies. Could you share maybe some of the technologies that you're considering implementing here?
Well, there's a lot, and we'll save that for some more press conferences, because I know you guys love coming here and battering me with questions, all right? Everybody have a great day. I know the lieutenant's got some interactive stuff with you and everything else. Enjoy your day. Thank you for showing up and being here with us on this day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
Mike, with policy, like I said, we already have policy in place, and that's
That's
all
what I
said and
mean,
done.
yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Taser's here, Taser's is training us how to do this, and.
So you don't have to go through that every time
Nope.
you have new technology?
Nope, as
Okay.
soon as I get it, if I get my training today, I'm scheduled for tomorrow personally, I get it today, I get trained, I'm out, I'm on, ready to go. But policy has come up a couple of times, public record, again, if it's evidentiary value and it's a criminal case, then it doesn't become public record because, you know, it's an open case. Other than that, just do a public records request and our policy. And the one last thing I wanna touch on is price. As a first line supervisor, as a responding supervisor, and I can also tell you that when you take into account lawsuits, especially frivolous lawsuits about people making allegations that the officer did this, you're gonna see a major increase or savings on that side, because you're gonna see, we're gonna be able to disprove what may or may not have happened. So that's also a savings that I like to get out to the community to know that the money is very well spent, because you're gonna see an increase in the money we're saving there. So again, guys, thank you again. We're gonna break out You can go outside if you want, inside if you want. We'll do the virtual reality so you guys can see some of that. And then we'll go into more depth on how the taser works with the camera and such like that. So thank you very much.
On the Night Beat, is the Fort Myers Police Department making the grade? We told you earlier about a scathing audit revealing several shortcomings at FMPD. Wink News wanted to know, what do you think? Night Beat's Kasey talked to several community members.
The number of unsolved crimes is staggering, from detectives failing to document investigations consistently.
I do have some concerns, and I've never said that we didn't have challenges. We got challenges.
Some of the more high-profile cases are ZombieCon and the Club Blue shooting. There were potentially hundreds of witnesses, and yet no one is charged in those killings. Wink News wanted to know what the community thinks, and they stand behind their officers. Tanya Cola is the coordinator of Dunbar Neighborhood Watch. She's also planning a community vigil tomorrow night.
I think sometimes we read too much into certain things, and I think that we should give them an opportunity and a chance, because I know that they work really hard to make sure that we're safe in this community.
Business leaders say they believe Southwest Florida is relatively safe compared to other areas.
So crime rates here are going to be lower than a lot of the areas, and the quality of life is better. People move here for water, warmth, and way of life.
Still, there is clearly a need for improvement. Kasey Kushner, Wink News, now.
Research shows crime rates can directly impact property values. One study indicates that a 10% reduction in homicides would lead to an increase in home values the following year. Community members say they know change takes time, but they hope after this audit, the Fort Myers Police Department can clean house quickly and keep everybody safe.
Now, alarming allegations against some Fort Myers police officers. A new independent report out today claims they leaked search warrant information to drug dealers, and those officers received promotions. This is just one finding from the review of that department. Wink News reporter Michelle Kingston was there when the group revealed its findings today. She's live now with more on what's next. Michelle.
Well, they're calling for a lot of changes within the department. They're asking for additional staffing, more training, even reevaluating supervisors. A lack of officers to solve crimes and preferential treatment within the department were two main issues brought out in an investigation within the Fort Myers Police Department.
That cannot happen. That is something that needs to be addressed one way or the other.
The city paid the free group $150,000 to investigate and found there's a culture of failure and defeatism, integrity issues, and cliques that divide the officers.
The great majority, if not almost every single person we interviewed, said there was a cliquish system within the department. You either were in or you were out.
The free group interviewed 200 officers anonymously, detailing policies not being followed, evidence getting backlogged, murderers being allowed to walk the streets because cases go cold. The report mentions allegations that some officers even leaked information to drug dealers about search warrants, and those officers who may have leaked information were promoted. The company also interviewed some members of the public who say they want more police visibility on the streets, which is one of the program's new Police Chief Derek Diggs has already implemented: community engagement.
We have improved the safety of our citizens in our neighborhoods, and we will continue to do so.
Chief Diggs says he's also taken a lot of weapons off of the streets since he started with the department. He also says he's going to be putting his officers through a lot of new training this year. Live in Fort Myers, Michelle Kingston, Wink News now.
So I want to get right in. A lot of people have been asking, what has taken you so long to read the report? People might say it doesn't show that you're as concerned about it maybe as you should be.
Right. We got the report announced Wednesday. I received it Wednesday. The way my schedule was lined up, it was just hard for me to stop everything and read it. I've been getting bits and pieces of it from people. This weekend I'll have plenty of time to drill down and get.
I mean, do you think that this should take precedence?
Well, it is an audit report, and it's going to have things in there that are going to take us time to digest and initiate. It's a priority, so let's get that clear. But it's not something that's going to happen overnight. So I'd rather be thorough with it. It's been a challenging week with regard to my time, and I think this weekend I'll have plenty of opportunity to get my mind around it.
Okay. You know, obviously, I mean, it said a lot in this report.
Yeah.
Were you surprised at all of everything that it found?
I tell you what I was surprised of is at the time that this report was issued, either just before the report or about the time it came out, is you know, our chief announced that that he was going to put some officers on leave. I'm concerned about that, and that was something that it made my head turn.
And you know, I mean, some of these officers have been there for quite some time. One of them is almost top brass there.
Yeah.
What concerns you about that these officers are on leave?
Well, I think we need to know, you know, were they part of the subject of the audit reports, the news that's come forward, what's around all of that? I think that's important to know. When you have citizens who come from time to time and say to the council, I've been mistreated, I've been this, I've been that. You know, we hear that sometimes, and we ask the city manager to look into these things. But it's hard to find the facts. It's hard to, we say to people, you know, help us understand your complaint. Ask city manager to look into it, and there just seems to never be anything of substance there. This report gives us the opportunity.
But do you think there's never any substance because, as some would say in the report, it was very cliquish? There's cliques inside, and they kind of try to cover up some things.
That begs the question, and that's what makes this, you know, so interesting and important to get in and find. We got to have the facts, and when the council, when assertions are made to the council, the first thing that we always want is, we're with you, we appreciate your concern, let's get the facts and let's begin to understand what we're dealing with so we can solve the problem.
I want to read something because you said about you know, the officers on leave. I want to read you a quote from page 7 of this report. It says, interviewees reported instances in which officers allegedly leaked information to drug dealers regarding search warrants. It does not appear that these matters were ever addressed in the department. Even those accusations, as mayor, how does that make you feel?
Well,
leaks to drug dealers.
The first thing that I feel is anger. This is a professional operation. We have high integrity and high standards. Why aren't we executing in that way? So something like that will get my back up, and I promise you, it's gotten the council's back up and the city manager's back up. So now we're predisposed to say, let's get to the bottom of this.
But when it comes to council, you know, some people have asked, how did it get this bad? And why did it take so long for an audit like this to come about?
I can assure you this. The council and myself are asking the same questions of senior leadership. Now we got a new city manager. To his credit, he has, like any good manager would, has said to the council, let's get a baseline audit. We're looking not only at the law enforcement department, we've looked at fire, we're looking at general employees, we're looking at across the spectrum, how can we be a better city? This is part and parcel to that. We've taken measures in the fire department to get a new chief. We're looking now at the report that has just come out for the law enforcement. And this is part of a reset, if you will. So council wants to know, I want to know, we have the same questions. Why so long? Why, when it was being represented to the council, for example, we're dealing with this, we've got this, we're using this, using that. What else was not shared with us during those years? And I'm going to say that let's talk about a 36, 48 month span of time.
I have to ask though, where does the buck ultimately stop? Is it you as mayor, or is it the city manager or the chief?
Well, you read the city charter, that'll answer that question for you. The city, the mayor, sets policy. As a matter of fact, when we have had the urge to get deeper involved in things, we have to resist because we're not, myself, the council, we don't run the city on a day-to-day basis. We have 2 employees, a city manager, city attorney. Our job is to hold them accountable. Unless we have information that suggests otherwise, that our city leadership is grossly negligent, making poor decisions.
And this never came up once before that you felt that you needed to step in?
Well, let's put to date, until we got this, there wasn't any meaningful, factual information that would lead the council to say, wait a minute, city manager, there's not something right with you.
But did it ever make you think all the high-profile cases that were never able to get solved, sitting up, in council, did it ever make you think, what is going on here? Why can't they solve these cases?
Yeah, well, it would come to mind, but honestly, that's everywhere. There's high-profile cases. There's cold cases in every law enforcement jurisdiction. It wouldn't appear, for example, to the mayor or the council that was extraordinary or unusual in any way. We certainly suffered some cutbacks during the recession where we cut back law enforcement, but we cut back everything. We cut back general employees, fire. Leadership in most areas were able to deal with that. It seems like that our police agency suffered a little more than others.
Well, yeah, and I want to talk about that because that was a big deal for a lot of cities, to cut back. In 2008, obviously, they had the buyouts. The report says a lot of experienced officers and supervisors retired, and they, the people that replaced them weren't properly trained. Looking back, do you ever feel maybe you and council should have done more or made sure the police department did more when these buyouts happened?
Well, it's a hard thing to analyze. When you say do more, would that put us in a position of overstepping our authority under the charter?
So ultimately, the city manager ultimately that's where the buck stops when it comes to day-to-day operations.
I think with day-to-day operations, things like this where the police chief reports to the city manager, I think that's straightforward and clear. And we're all guarded. My colleagues and I, we're all guarded that we're not promoting or supporting insubordination, pushing politics downstream that interfere with day-to-day working, and that's a delicate balance. I've been concerned. I've met over the past few years with, for example, with our legal team. I've asked them questions, but there's nothing really that jumps out at you that says, "Wow, this is an emergency. This is a crisis." In our day-to-day stuff.
I want to go back to the the leaks to the drug dealers, the allegations of that. Whose decision is it to bring in another agency to investigate if there's any criminal wrongdoing for those officers? Is that you? Is that the city manager, the chief?
Yeah. One way that this came forward, and that's a great question, is in this world of policy making, and yet authority over the city matters. In that process, I met with our city legal team, namely Grant Alley, and years back, and I said, is there something we ought to be doing as a mayor and as a council? What are some options? And we had a informal brainstorm. It was suggested that we consult with some outside authorities on ideas, and it came forward that the Department of Justice is available to help law enforcement agencies. You can hire outside companies. We end up hiring the Louis Free Agency, for example, and they will come in and do an assessment, much like you would do a financial audit, which we do every year. It made sense to me. Over time, I suggested to Billy Mitchell and Saeed Kazemi, subsequent to Billy Mitchell, that why don't you think about having someone come in, just do it top-down, and let's do the whole city. Let's just don't focus on law enforcement. And ultimately it evolved into that. I credit Saeed for listening to the idea. Now that's all it was, an idea. So he had to go do the legwork. He had to call around who does this, who can do it well. So I think it's fair to say that in an informal sort of way, that concept came forward. Saeed grabbed hold of it and today we have the results of not only the police audit, but we've got fire and general employee, we have our financial audit. All those things are available, available to council, to citizens to look and see. They're tools that help us do better. They're also tools that help us understand if things are going bad or if there's misbehaving and those kind of things.
Right.
You look for that all the time in financial. We should be looking at it more in all aspects of city business.
Well, do you think anyone's going to bring in maybe the DOJ to investigate officers now?
Well, it depends on what the severity of the situation is. That's clearly what the expectation would be if continued judgments of the city leadership, especially the chief, would lead to that. So yes, I think we're going to be all wanting to know.
And that's something that you're maybe open to suggesting after you read the fine details? Is
Well,
that something that you would? Is that something that you would bring forward the DOJ investigator, or is that more of a city manager, chief, when it comes to the DOJ?
Well, I would say it's probably a joint effort.
Yeah.
I think the council would expect. I would expect that we would have information come forward to the council. We would dissect that together with city management and come up with a decision as to what to do. It may follow a natural course. I don't know. I'm not a law enforcement expert, but I am keenly interested in getting the findings in this report addressed as quickly as possible, so we understand how we need to go forward.
There's another one that I want to read to you. Officers who were not trusted by other officers, witnesses, or outside agencies were nevertheless promoted and allowed to serve in positions wherein they had the ability to compromise sensitive investigations.
Yeah.
And I want to go back to the Andrew Faust case, because I believe that's when something really started to change in the city. Do you ever think back, if our department was performing better, could that boy's killers have been caught and punished?
Well, when you look at a report that asserts these kind of things, and that begs the question. And I think the answer is yes. We could have done better. We should have done better. When you hear these kinds of assertions made, you're saying to yourself that a total breakdown in senior leadership in the department. Trust obviously was a big deal. If we had information leaking, which this suggests, that's a huge problem. It is a huge problem and a huge disappointment. I think the council is ready to get on with this report and find out what needs to be done going forward.
Because I mean, there's so many people out there whose loved ones are not here anymore, and they're probably sitting back thinking, if they could have just done their job well, we would have some justice.
Well, let's don't think lightly of the perpetrator. Ultimately, this blood lies on the hands of the person that did it, and I'm gonna fall short of laying that blame on law enforcement. You know, we want to do our best to stop things, and we support our law enforcement. We do not support the kind of assertions that have come forward in this report. We do not support that. And what our obligation is, once we know the information, is to move swiftly through it, solve the problem, and go deeper and find out just how bad it is. And I think that's what we got to make the focus.
Right.
Looking back over our shoulders and with 20/20 hindsight, woulda, coulda, shoulda kind of analysis doesn't serve much purpose. We're heartbroken for every loss of citizens. I said last night for hours in a wonderful, beautiful, emotional prayer vigil for those lost. That's not something that the council and myself figure on year in and year out. We're about making cities better and including safer. And when this happens, it's heartbreaking.
So now let's talk about the future. You know, we got through the stuff in the report that I want to bring up to you. In any way, is this kind of good that all of this just kind of came out, everyone knows about it? Do you see that as a way to move forward?
Well, I think rather than use the word good, I think the appropriate characterization is it is the expectation. We paid a lot of money for this report. we're going to take the report and set it on a shelf. We need information. The report is aimed at making us a better city. The results of how we solve issues in a report, that's good. That is good. And so in that sense, the report is going to do what it's supposed to do, give us knowledge, give us a way forward, and I can promise you the city manager, the council, myself, we want to get this right. And we get financial reports every year, financial audits every year, and those audits have been good reports. And we should probably do this more often. Is one thing, one of my takeaways, and I'm not sure you do this every year, but you know, probably every 5 years or so you want to check things out a little bit. This is an agency. Entities go through life cycles, and I think this report illustrates to us clearly we're at the low end of a life cycle with our law enforcement officer in the way of culture, the way of behavior, the favoritism that's illustrated there, possible leaks. Those are horrible things. We got to solve that.
So, you know, the recommendations, obviously, when you read through the report, it has a series of recommendations. Some of them are, you know, hiring more officers, hiring 2 deputy chiefs, a PIO. So from a council standpoint and from a budget standpoint, how is the city going to afford this moving forward? Where was the money going to come from to actually make these recommendations come to life?
Yeah, great question. A lot of the things that are suggested in here are already funded and underway. We were one of the first agencies, even in the Baker administration, to put and deploy body cams, and we're doing that more. We had a release just recently where more body cams are coming. We've got cameras in public places. They're paid for. We are going to budget for and implement new technology over a period of time. The city's growing. If I can step back a minute and look at the policy of the council and with the leadership of the city leadership in the way of economic development, we've emerged post-recession now, and we are going to have new discretionary revenues to help us solve these kinds of problems. So I'm confident. I was noticing some interviews where, you know, would you be willing to pay, you know, extra taxes? I don't see a scenario where that's readily required to do. I think we can shepherd through this. We came through the Great Recession, and we did pretty good in some very challenging times financially. And I believe we're going to be fine. I think we'll find the money.
And you talked about growth. Do you think FMPD is going to be do you think FMPD is going to be able to handle the growth in this city?
Yeah, I do. We have excellent leadership in Derek Diggs. I credit the city manager for his selection of a very serious and measured and a law enforcement professional who's intent on solving this problem. He came from an environment where his problem there was much worse than ours. He's got special knowledge. He's making an impact already. I believe with the deployment of the latest and greatest technology, best practices, community policing, trust building, these are all critical issues, and he's dialed that in. I am confident that we will solve this, and it will be better, and we will be able to fund it, and we're going to be safer for it. Fort Myers is not less safe than other cities in this region or in this state or America for that matter. And we've just transitioned into new leadership in the city manager's office and new leadership in law enforcement. And I believe results are going to be coming forward.
Briefly talk to me, but you know, in the report it says that officers respect Chief Diggs. You know, he's changed stuff already. He is seems to be, to many people from the report, the guy to handle all of this. So tell me more about Chief Diggs and your confidence that he is the right person to do this.
Every day I grow in confidence. He's a man of not many words. He's a relentless worker. I have respected that he doesn't have time for a lot of things because he's busy. I felt guilty, I'll share this story, taking him away from his daily work to join other mayors and chiefs around the state to talk about violent crime. He did come away from that thanking me and said that he gleaned a lot from it. But at the meantime, he wasn't back here, working with his troops. He is intent on solving this, and I'm confident. I have a very high confidence level. I think the council has a high confidence level that he will get the job done. So our days forward are very promising, and we're going to hold him accountable. Again, Syed Kasemi is to be commended for going for on a national search and handpicking a guy to lead us forward.
Okay, I think that is it. I just want to make sure there's nothing else. Okay. And that's a lot. Covered a lot.
I'm tired.
And I know this might be a tough question to answer, but is there anyone in your mind is there one person that's responsible for all this in your mind, do you think? Or do you think it's just been through the years with multiple people?
I would say it's an aggregate of missteps along the way that have been compounded by maybe not fully understanding the depth of the challenges that have come forward here. I'm particularly bothered by the notion, reality, that the city of Fort Myers law enforcement agency would not play well with other agencies. I don't understand that. It doesn't make sense to me. And I've heard people who've read the report say that that's one of the big things in the report. And I'm going to read that over this weekend.
Did you ever get the sense of that happening even when Chief Baker was in office?
I wondered about it, and here's why I wondered about it. There was evidence in the media, a letter that Baker, I recall, and I couldn't recite the letter for you, but it had a very uncooperative tone to it, to Steve Russell. And I remember at that time thinking, geez, that's not good. We ought to have a better working relationship. So there were things along the way that gave me pause, and then to have this come forward now and say that we weren't playing well with others, and I've heard that.
Looking back now, do you kind of wish you would have said something?
Yeah.
Back then.
Yeah, I think. Well, at the very least, I wish I would have said, "Hey, how's it going with our neighboring law enforcement officers? Are we doing good? Are we working with them?" I mean, that would have been a good thing to do. And yet, we're busy. The council's busy doing its work. I'll say it again, unless we have really compelling reason to not doubt to not trust or have extreme doubt about city management, our city chief, police chief, we're going to go on about our business. And so I'm interested in learning more.
I wanted to ask you last question, anything that you, in yourself maybe, or maybe wanting to do moving forward as mayor, of making sure it doesn't get this bad ever again?
Well, I think those measures have been taken. We have a new city manager. We have a new police chief. We're deploying new technology, and we've been on this for several years now. It's not just now evolving, and we got a lot more to do. I'm comfortable with that. I think we're going to be very assertive. I think we're going to have a lot of progress made. In the meantime, whatever fallout we have from this report, we're going to solve that. We're going to get to the bottom of it, make sure this doesn't happen again. So if there's any responsibility I feel with the council is, we're going to say to the city manager, solve this and give us prima facie evidence that it's solved. Yeah. I think probably it's going to make us be a little less willing to accept that everything is okay, and that we ought to be stepping up. And you say, things are okay. And in what way are they okay? Let's begin to question things a little more. So we're gonna emerge out of this stronger, and I'm confident. I'm glad we did it. It was a good idea when it was born a few years ago. Saeed executed on it. The council's here today. They're not happy about this. We don't know it fully yet, but we're gonna find out.
All right, Mayor. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you.